The cutter's hull shrieked as fragments of rock scraped along its side. Dr. Reinl Varric cursed under his breath, yanking at the stabilizer controls while the proximity alarms wailed. "Watch your angle." Kareth snapped from the co-pilot's chair, bracing against the console. "I see it." Varric's jaw clenched as a jagged boulder the size of a building tumbled across their path. The cutter's thrusters flared blue, sliding them just past the spinning mass. The shadow of the rock swallowed them for a breath, then spat them out into a clearer pocket of the asteroid belt. The cockpit went quiet except for the soft hum of engines struggling to compensate for the maneuver. Varric exhaled slowly, sweat sticking his collar to his neck. "You said this section was mapped." Kareth didn't look at him. His amber eyes stayed fixed on the shifting debris field. "It was. These asteroids weren't here last cycle." Varric muttered a string of curses in his native tongue. He was not a pilot. He was a scientist. The fact that he was strapped into a mining cutter, dodging ancient rocks older than most civilizations, told him this expedition had already gone wrong. Ahead the belt seemed to thin. Dust drifted in lazy clouds, lit faintly by a dying star far off in the distance. The cutter's scanners pulsed against the murk, sending back data streams filled with inconsistencies. Energy readings where there should be none. Metallic echoes buried under kilometers of stone. "There." Kareth pointed. "Cut through that cluster." Varric narrowed his eyes at the screen. The coordinates were dark, almost hollow. Not natural voids between rocks but spaces carved into the belt itself. "You're certain?" he asked. "Do you want to turn back?" Varric's gut twisted at the thought. If he returned empty-handed, the Council would strip his funding and bury his name under 10,000 forgotten academic petitions. He had begged for this assignment, convinced there was more to the anomalies here than geological noise. If he was wrong, his career was finished. If he was right. The cutter eased forward. Thrusters whispered against the silence. Asteroids rolled away like indifferent giants, parting just enough to allow passage. And then the shadows broke open. Varric forgot how to breathe. The void yawned wide, not empty but filled with silhouettes. Hundreds, thousands, maybe millions of them. Colossal shapes stretched into the dark, aligned in eerie precision, their hulls black as the rock around them. Ships. The closest one dwarfed the cutter. Its surface was jagged with scars, long gashes that looked almost fresh despite the millennia. Armor plating thick as city walls gleamed faintly where the dust had failed to cling. Across its length ran symbols, deeply carved, still visible after unimaginable time. Kareth whispered without meaning to, "That's not Council design." Varric leaned forward, heart hammering. His hands trembled as he activated the scanner. Data spilled across the display, incomprehensible at first, then horrifyingly clear. The alloys were unknown. The reactors cold but still charged. The ship was dead but not broken. "It's a fleet," Varric said hoarsely. "An entire Warfleet." Kareth's hand hovered near the comm switch. "Do we report this now?" Varric hesitated. The Council would want this buried. They always buried anything they could not control. His name, his research, the truth, erased, classified, lost. He stared at the nearest warship, his chest tightening. The markings along its hull caught the faint light. They weren't Council script. They weren't any of the dozens of galactic dialects he knew. Yet something about them stirred recognition deep inside him, like a word on the tip of his tongue. "Kareth," his voice broke. That's human lettering." The co-pilot turned sharply, his expression caught between disbelief and dread. "That's impossible. Humans don't." The cutter's lights flickered. Both men froze. The vast, dark warship in front of them pulsed faintly. A single strip of light crawled along its hull, glowing and fading, as if something inside had stirred after endless silence. Varric's throat went dry. "It saw us." The ship pulsed again, brighter this time. Deep in the void, farther than their lights reached, other ships answered. One by one across the graveyard, lights began to wake. The silence that had filled the cockpit now pressed against their ears like weight. Kareth's hand finally slammed the comm switch, his voice cracking through the static as he shouted for the fleet. But Varric didn't move. His eyes stayed locked on the markings across the nearest ship. The word carved there, ancient and crude, yet undeniable. He mouthed it without sound, his stomach turning to stone. It was not alien. It was not foreign. It was written in the oldest tongue of Earth. And it was a warning. The call came in at 3:42 in the morning. Dr. Amelia Cross fumbled for her phone, eyes barely open, the ringing drilling into her skull. She blinked at the screen. It wasn't her mother or her sister or anyone sane enough to be awake. It was an encrypted number from her department at Langley. She considered ignoring it. Her body screamed for sleep. She had stayed up grading papers for undergrads who couldn't tell a Proto-Indo-European root word from their own shoe size. She had poured a glass of cheap wine, promised herself one episode of a show, and somehow ended up reading a 600-page monograph instead. But the number was from the directorate. The kind of number you did not ignore. She slid her finger across the screen. Cross. The voice on the other end was clipped, professional. Doctor, we need you in Building 4 immediately. Bring your clearance card. Transportation will be outside in 5 minutes. No explanation. No room for argument. The line went dead. Amelia sat up, her head swimming. She stared at the dark room for a moment, then dragged herself out of bed. The chill on the floorboards jolted her fully awake. By the time she was on the curb, a black SUV with tinted windows had already pulled up. 2 men in suits sat inside, stone-faced. Neither spoke as she climbed in. They didn't have to. This was the way things worked when you were on the government's shortlist of useful specialists. The drive was silent, and Amelia's mind spun in the absence of answers. She was a linguist, not a physicist, not an engineer. If they were dragging her out of bed in the middle of the night, it meant words were involved. Words that frightened people. Inside Building 4, she was rushed down corridors that smelled faintly of recycled air and coffee gone bad. A security officer checked her badge 3 times before leading her into a briefing room. The room was dim, lit only by the glow of a projection screen. A half-dozen people were already inside, some in uniform, others in civilian clothes with the pinched look of people who hadn't slept in days. At the head of the table stood Colonel Richard Hale, broad-shouldered, his face cut in hard lines. He acknowledged her with a nod that was more command than greeting. Dr. Cross. Sit. She slid into a chair, forcing herself to keep her posture calm despite the nerves crawling through her chest. Hale tapped the console. The projection changed. Static filled the room first, then resolved into grainy footage. Amelia's breath caught. A ship. Not the clean, angular design she had seen in classified alien schematics. This was different. Enormous, scarred, ancient. It looked like a mountain carved into the shape of a predator. Across its hull ran marks, symbols gouged into the metal itself. The image froze. The room was silent. Doctor, Hale said, his voice low but sharp, tell me what you see. Amelia leaned forward, her pulse quickening. She didn't answer immediately. Her eyes tracked the shapes across the hull. They were rough, archaic. She could see patterns, roots, something almost familiar. Is this authentic? She asked finally. Answer the question. Her lips parted. Those markings, they're human. The structure matches Proto-Indo-European glyphs. It's old. Very old. One of the men in the corner muttered a curse. Another scribbled frantically on a notepad. Hale's gaze stayed fixed on her. How old are we talking? Amelia shook her head slowly. That language predates writing as we know it. We're talking about sounds and symbols reconstructed by linguists. 5,000-6,000 years at least. But this isn't possible. If these carvings are genuine, her throat tightened. They don't belong on a starship. Hale tapped the console again. Another clip played. The ship's surface pulsed with faint light. Then came the sound. A transmission, distorted, metallic, repeating in a loop. Amelia froze. Her skin prickled. She knew the cadence. The vowels were stretched, the consonants crude, but the structure was unmistakable. It wasn't alien. It wasn't random. It was language. She swallowed hard. That's human speech. Proto? No. Older. Apparent tongue. This shouldn't even exist on recording. What does it say? Hale asked. Amelia leaned closer, letting the words roll through her mind, piecing the fragments together like broken pottery. The translation came slowly, every syllable pressing down like a weight. Finally she spoke. It says, "We are awake." The room went still. Hale's jaw tightened, but he didn't flinch. Then it's not just ships. Something out there is trying to talk to us. Amelia sat back, her heart hammering, the projection's pale light flickering across her face. She had spent her life studying dead languages, but this was different. This wasn't the past reaching forward. This was the past waking up. And it was speaking directly to Earth. Suspense ending. The recording looped again, louder this time, filling the room. Amelia pressed her hands together to steady herself. What none of them noticed, not at first, was that the transmission had shifted. The final syllables were no longer ancient. They had changed, adapting, reshaping themselves into something all too familiar. The last words came through in clear, perfect English. "We are awake." The council chamber was a cathedral of steel and light, a place meant to inspire awe, but tonight it was boiling with fear. Rows of delegates shouted over one another, their voices bouncing against the vaulted ceiling. Holoscreens displayed grainy images of the asteroid belt, the titanic ships glowing faintly in the void like embers refusing to die. Commander Varen stood rigid at the center platform, jaw locked, eyes forward. He had delivered his report twice, each time drowned out by the chaos it sparked. Now the delegates demanded answers he did not have. "The footage is fabricated," one counselor barked, slamming a scaled fist against the table. "Then explain why my border fleets have gone dark," another countered, feathers bristling with fury. "The markings are human," a third said coldly. "This cannot be ignored. If those ships belong to them, if they awaken." Varen finally spoke, his voice cutting across the uproar. "They are awakening. You waste breath arguing while your fleets are being torn apart." The chamber went still for a heartbeat. Everyone's eyes snapped to him. One of the elder counselors leaned forward, her silvered skin gleaming under the lights. "Commander, clarify that statement." Varen's throat was dry, but he didn't falter. "We attempted containment. 3 cruisers entered the perimeter to dismantle one of the derelicts. The derelict moved. It deployed weapons we could not track. My ships were erased in seconds. No debris. No distress calls. Just silence." A cold murmur swept through the chamber. "They are not derelicts," Varen finished quietly. "They are sleeping predators. And now they are waking." The chamber erupted again, voices clashing, some shrill with panic, others demanding preemptive strikes, sanctions, destruction. But beneath the noise, a heavier fear lingered. If those ships truly bore human markings, then humanity was not what the Council had always claimed. They were not primitives. They were survivors of something much older. Varen stared at the holoscreens, at the hulking shapes adrift in the belt. A thought he dared not speak gnawed at him. What if this was not the first time the galaxy had belonged to humans? On Earth, Amelia rubbed her eyes raw, staring at the endless loop of the transmission. Her lab smelled of stale coffee and recycled air, cluttered with half-open books and glowing monitors. Colonel Hale paced behind her, his boots clicking against the floor in a restless rhythm. "Say it again." Amelia pinched the bridge of her nose. "It says, 'We are awake.' Over and over." "No, the part you didn't want to say." Her chest tightened. She looked up at him, his face carved in shadows. "The structure of the language is too old to exist on a recording. It shouldn't be here. The only way it's possible is if someone carried it forward. Preserved it. Which means the ones speaking weren't aliens. They were human." Hale's jaw flexed. He stopped pacing. "And now they're alive again." Amelia hesitated, her mind turning over the fragments, connecting dots she didn't want to connect. "Do you know the myths about the first departure? Stories from Aboriginal Dreamtime, from Norse sagas, from forgotten tribes in the Andes. They all talk about people who came from the stars, fought a war, and then vanished. What if those weren't myths? What if they were memories?" Before Hale could answer, the lights in the lab flickered. Monitors froze, lines of code rushing across them unbidden. Amelia's heart lurched. That's not local interference. The transmission had shifted again. No longer a simple loop. It was splicing itself into Earth systems, hijacking every signal, every open channel. Across news broadcasts, cell phones, car radios, even children's toys with cheap speakers, the same voice emerged. Amelia grabbed her headset. Her hands shook as she listened. The words were slower now, deliberate, as if someone, or something, was testing the tongue it had not spoken in millions of years. Hale stood beside her, his voice low, tight with unease. "What is it saying?" Amelia's lips parted. She almost didn't want to speak. "It's asking a question." The speakers buzzed, and the voice rolled through the room, deeper and clearer than before. "Children, do you remember us?" The words landed like stones in her chest. She felt the weight of them not just in her ears but in her bones. The past was not past. It was here, reaching forward. Hale turned, staring at the frozen monitors. "That's not just a message. That's a memory trying to crawl back into the world." Suspense ending. Before Amelia could respond, the lab's security alarms wailed. A young analyst rushed in, face pale, clutching a tablet. "Colonel, you need to see this. One of the ships has broken formation. It's moving." Amelia's pulse spiked. "Toward us." The analyst swallowed hard. "Toward Earth." The alien blockade had been waiting. Dozens of gleaming dreadnoughts hung between Mars and the asteroid belt, their hulls bristling with weapons, their formations locked in perfect precision. To the Council they were a wall of safety. To the crews inside they were a thin line against the dark. Commander Varen stood on the bridge of the heroine's spear, his claws dug deep into the railing. Every eye on his ship was fixed on the object approaching from the belt. It glided forward with the grace of inevitability, its hull blackened, its scars gleaming in starlight. The ancient warship dwarfed them all. Distance decreasing, his navigator whispered. It's not slowing. Target it, Varen ordered. His voice shook only slightly. All ships, prepare to fire. Across the blockade, thousands of weapons locked onto the Leviathan. Energy charges pulsed, rail cannons aligned, missile pods primed. The crews whispered silent prayers, some for victory, others for mercy. Fire. Varen roared. The void lit up. Beams of plasma, streaks of missiles, kinetic slugs traveling faster than thought, all of it hurled against the dark warship. Explosions blossomed across its surface, each one bright enough to blind sensors. For a moment relief surged. Then the light cleared. The warship sailed on untouched. Not a scorch, not a dent. The Council fleets began to stammer through comms, confusion tipping into panic. And then the warship answered. It didn't fire weapons. It didn't need to. A pulse of light rippled across its hull, spreading like a heartbeat. The wave struck the blockade. Entire dreadnoughts flickered, their systems shutting down in synchronized silence. Crews screamed as gravity vanished, air thinned, power died. Ships that had stood for centuries as symbols of supremacy became drifting coffins in seconds. Varen's hands tightened on the railing. His own ship buckled, warning lights screaming. Consoles went dead one by one, his crew pounding at controls in desperation. But just as suddenly the pulse stopped. The warship sailed past them, unhurried, uninterested. It hadn't destroyed them. It had dismissed them. The silence that followed was worse than any battle. On Earth, panic was rising in waves. In Washington, London, Beijing, Moscow, the footage spread faster than governments could suppress it. Everyone with a screen had seen the alien fleets vanish from power, their supposed masters swatted aside like insects. News anchors tried to keep calm, their voices breaking as they repeated the same lines. Unidentified ship inbound toward Earth. Governments advising all citizens to remain calm. This is not an invasion. But people knew better. Cities filled with fear, some with riots, some with prayer vigils, some with drunken parties that felt like last goodbyes. Inside Langley, Amelia watched the live feed on a wall of monitors. The warship was larger now, close enough for telescopes to capture details. Its surface was carved with patterns like scars, its engines glowing faintly with ancient fire. It was not sleek like alien designs. It was brutal, functional, a machine built for war, not elegance. It's not accelerating, Amelia whispered. It's not attacking. Colonel Hale stood beside her, arms crossed, his face unreadable. Doesn't need to. Look at what it just did. They had fleets ready to die stopping it, and it walked past them like they weren't even there. Amelia's throat tightened. If it wanted us dead, we'd already be gone. So why come here? Hale didn't answer. His eyes stayed locked on the massive shape sliding closer, closer, until it filled the screens like a continent. The room trembled as an analyst ran in, pale-faced. Colonel, we're getting wide-spectrum interference. Every channel, every frequency. It's broadcasting again. The speakers crackled. The voice came deeper, clearer, as if it had learned the tongue in the span of hours. Home. The word froze the room. Everyone turned to Amelia. Her lips parted, but no sound came. Then the voice again, longer this time. Home. Children. Forgotten. Return. The signal was not just sound. Data piggybacked on the transmission, crashing into Earth's networks. Files bloomed on every screen. Images, fragments of battles, holograms of armored humans wielding weapons against monstrous shapes. Amelia's stomach turned as she realized what she was seeing. Not myths. Not legends. Memories. Hale gripped the edge of the table. Jesus Christ. They were here before. They fought a war. The images shifted again. Not battles now, but burial. Colossal ships sliding into the asteroid belt, their lights dimming, sealing themselves away. A final vow burned into every record. We will return when called. Do not forget us. Amelia pressed a trembling hand to her mouth. The weight of it all pressed down like gravity. The world she thought she knew was a lie. The warship slowed, coming to a halt in high orbit above Earth. Its shadow stretched across continents, blotting out the stars. For the first time in human history, It was not an alien vessel in their skies. It was human. Every phone, every speaker, every device in every home on Earth activated at once. The voice thundered, impossible to ignore. "Children, why have you forgotten us?" Panic spread like wildfire across cities. People poured into streets, crying, shouting, clinging to each other. Priests called it the Day of Reckoning. Scientists whispered it was contact. Conspiracy theorists screamed they had been right all along. Amelia could barely think. Her eyes burned, her chest tight, her whole body trembling. She turned to Hale, searching his face for an anchor. "What do we do? What the hell do we do?" Hale didn't answer. His gaze stayed fixed on the warship in the sky, his voice low, almost reverent. "We listen." Suspense ending, high above the Earth, the warship shifted. Its hull opened with a grinding of ancient machinery. Not weapons. Not cannons. A corridor of light stretching downward, a bridge between ship and planet. Something was coming out. The warship's light bathed half the planet in pale silver, its corridor stretching down like the finger of a god. Across the world, people fell silent, staring at the sky. Streets clogged with traffic, crowds abandoned their homes, every eye turned upward. In Washington, Amelia stood on the tarmac of a military airfield, wind tearing at her hair as she stared up at the impossible bridge of light. The voice had gone quiet, but its presence lingered in the marrow of her bones. Beside her, Colonel Hale adjusted the strap on his sidearm, though both of them knew it was a useless gesture. His jaw was set, his eyes unblinking as he watched the light descend. "They want us," Amelia whispered. "They want you," Hale muttered, his tone hard but not cruel. "You're the one who understands them. The rest of us, we're just baggage." Before she could argue, the order came. A transport craft was readied. Amelia, Hale, and a small team of specialists were to board the warship. Refusing was never an option. The craft rose into the night sky, engines roaring against the silence of a waiting world. Amelia's stomach knotted as they pierced the light, the brightness swallowing them whole. Inside, the noise died. The cabin grew impossibly still. Through the windows stretched an endless corridor, walls of shimmering energy pulsing with faint patterns like veins carrying blood. The craft drifted upward, pulled gently as if carried by unseen hands. Then the warship swallowed them. The hangar bay was vast, cavernous, its scale dwarfing anything Amelia had ever seen. The walls were black alloy, etched with the same markings she had studied in whispers. The air was breathable, warm, faintly metallic. It felt less like a machine and more like a cathedral. Their boots echoed against the floor as they stepped out of the craft. Every soldier held their weapon tight, eyes darting to shadows, though no threat emerged. And then, from the far end of the bay, light rippled. Figures stepped forward. Amelia's breath caught in her throat. They were human. Taller than average, their builds lean and hardened, skin marked with faint geometric lines that glowed faintly beneath the surface. Their armor was ancient yet seamless, black metal laced with luminous blue veins. Their eyes carried weight, not hostility but something heavier, memory. One of them removed his helm. His face was weathered, strong, his hair streaked silver though his body moved with effortless strength. When he spoke, the words rolled perfectly in English as though he had always known it. "You are our children." No one answered. Even Hale, unshakable soldier that he was, had no words. The man's gaze settled on Amelia. "We seeded this world. When the war ended, we could not remain. Too much had been lost. Too many enemies lingered. So we gave Earth a chance to grow without our shadows. We left ourselves here, sleeping, waiting for the call." Amelia's throat was dry. Her voice cracked. "The call?" He nodded once. "A signal. A stirring of what we once fought. It has begun again." The bay hummed faintly as if the ship itself agreed. Hale finally found his voice. "What enemies? The Council? The aliens we've been dealing with for decades." The man shook his head slowly. His eyes seemed to pierce through them. "No. The Council are scavengers. They built their empires from what we left behind. They are frightened because they know what we defeated once before, and what rises again will not spare them any more than it will spare you." The words settled like lead. Amelia felt her knees weaken. What did you fight?" The man's expression hardened. "Not life as you know it. Not flesh. Not spirit. A hunger that moves between the stars, older than memory, never creating, only consuming. We thought we destroyed it. We were wrong." The silence that followed was suffocating. Another of the armored humans stepped forward, her voice sharp, commanding. "Your world has forgotten us. But blood remembers. You are not weak. You carry what we carried. And you will need it. Because this time we cannot win without you. Amelia's heart pounded. She wanted to deny it, to insist this was impossible, that humanity wasn't ready. But deep inside she knew. The myths, the whispers in history, the stories of great battles fought in the sky, they had never been stories. They had been warnings. Hale straightened, his face carved from stone. If you're asking for Earth's help, you're going to get resistance. People will panic. Governments will want to hide. But if you're telling the truth, his voice dropped raw. Then we don't have a choice. The first man, the commander, she realized, nodded once. Then come with us. See what rises in the dark. Far away in the council chamber, chaos raged. The warship's arrival at Earth had shattered every illusion of control. Delegates shouted, some demanding immediate extermination of humanity, others pleading for surrender, others too broken to speak. Commander Varen watched silently. None of their words mattered. The truth was already clear. For the first time in history, the Council was afraid not of what humanity was, but of what humanity had been. And what it was about to become again. Above Earth, the Warfleet stirred. One by one, other ships in the asteroid belt began to glow, their lights rippling awake, ancient engines thundering to life after 3 million years of silence. Amelia stood in the hangar bay, staring at the rows of preserved humans stirring in their stasis pods. Not machines. Not archives. People. Thousands of them. The commander's voice echoed through the chamber. The war we ended is returning. This time, it will not be ours alone to fight. Final suspense ending. In the black beyond the edge of the system, something vast shifted. Sensors across alien fleets screamed warnings. A pulse darker than light rippled outward, a call answered after 3 million years. For the first time, Amelia understood. The ancient Warfleet hadn't awakened by accident. It had been summoned. And whatever had summoned it was already on its way.